Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Gores. I'm the Director of City Planning. I welcome you to tonight's meeting. This is the third community meeting on the Main Street Neighborhood Commercial District Plan. Tonight, we're going to talk about some ideas and some things that we think are possibilities for the district. I'm going to go ahead and pull myself off the screen and just jump right into the presentation because we have a lot to share with you. I should say that first of all, this meeting is a couple of months late. We apologize for that. We had a few other priorities, planning priorities, but that popped up that took a little precedent. This meeting should have occurred a couple of months ago, but we've now put those other items behind us, and we're now ready or back in the saddle on this project and ready to move forward. So with that, let us go ahead and start the presentation. Okay, so tonight's agenda, we're going to give you a quick summary of where we've been since the last time we've met. We're going to present some preliminary ideas for the district, and then we'll leave some time at the end to hear some audience comments. Just to review, this is our team of city staff and planning commission staff and the MPO and HART and the UF School of Architecture. With me tonight, pretty much in the background, is Frank Hall. I know many of you know Frank. He's been working in the district. Frank, you want to say hello?
Good evening. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here this evening, and I'm glad to have everyone here. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the presentation and gain some new insight and some information. See you later.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, so just a little reminder, we're recording the event for playback in the future. I believe everyone is muted. We'll take some questions at the end. You can enter some comments or questions in the question box. We'll be able to look at those at the end of the meeting. But to give you an idea of where we've been, this is just a reminder, this is the study area, what we call the Main Street Neighborhood Commercial District. It includes Main Street from Armenia to North Boulevard and Howard Avenue from Green Street or the interstate up to just north of Beach Street, excuse me. We've held 2 virtual community meetings. This is the third. We've had 21 focus group or small group meetings. I think that's actually larger than 21. We had some in the last 60 days that I don't think has been added to that number. We've attended several meetings and one-on-one discussions, and we've also had an online survey that many of you participated in. If you remember, in our first meeting, we talked about what makes a great district. We shared that the street, looking at the street, from a perspective that it's more than just moving cars, that a street is a container for all the human activity that happens along the street. That's not only the movement of cars, but schools, people, buildings, recreation, and so forth. And that the street needs to be designed to accommodate all of those functions. We talked about how a street is designed into street zones, that every street has these zones. Sometimes the value of the zone is 0. It's not necessarily that it doesn't exist. It's just not present on that street. And how that planners look at streets in this context in terms of the sidewalk, how wide is the sidewalk? Are there curbs and gutters? Is there room for parking? And also all of the other different aspects of lanes and bike lanes and so forth. And the challenge is, how do we make a street maximize its values in all of these areas? And sometimes we have to make compromises that the street can't include all of these zones. We also talked about the buildings and their contents. The buildings being the shells of how they look, how they're structured, the condition, and so forth. And then what's in their buildings being basically the businesses, the types of businesses, who they serve, who's running the businesses, and so forth. And of course, the last item we talked about are the people that live and work and use the district. The silhouette on the left, because of COVID, we weren't able to meet with you all in the community meetings or in small groups as much as we would like. Typically, this slide would be filled with images of the people that we met with or the meetings that we had. In this case, it's just silhouette, sort of representing the fact that we met during COVID virtually and still were able to get many of the comments into the plan. We value all the interactions, and it really helped to shape some of the ideas for the future. We also had the University School of Architecture that took on this project as part of their class. Some of their ideas and recommendations are incorporated into this presentation, and we want to thank them as well for their time and dedication to the project. If you remember in our first meeting, we showed you a virtual tour of the community in terms of what some of its assets and some of the challenges were. Our approach is to take all of the information that we compiled through the community meetings, the focus groups, the surveys. We had some social media, not as much as we had thought that we were going to be able to take advantage of, but we had some. Of course, the information from the University School of Architecture. And then we did our own community analysis, our own economic analysis, and our staff, our project team, then did some brainstorming. So all of these inputs were used in the development of the ideas that we're going to see tonight. That first meeting, we posed 5 questions, and we talked about some of the ideas for the community. We asked what words describe the vision, and this is what we heard: walkable, family, vibrant, historic, diverse, and so forth. We asked the question, if you could change one thing in the district, what would that be? The appearance, making it safe and secure, improving the business climate, and improving the retail mix were all things that were high priority items from that meeting. We also asked what was the one thing that we should not do, or at least stop doing. People wanted to make sure that we took a look at the buildings, stop letting the buildings fall into disrepair. And we say we, that's the district as a whole. There was also the concern that existing businesses, particularly African-American businesses, would be excluded from the benefits of redevelopment. And they wanted, there was a message of making sure that everyone was included in redevelopment opportunities for the future. And then finally, we asked what were the 3 issues that we must solve. If we weren't able to do everything, what were the top 3 that we had to address? Making it safe and secure, improving the appearance, and creating a positive business climate. And there was a lot of different things that happened underneath each of those items. So taking all of those ideas and input, we came up with what we call community themes, these 10 big ideas or big buckets where you put information in. There are a lot of ideas for the district there, and we'll probably only touch the surface of some of them tonight, and we'll probably have other suggestions come out as a result of this meeting. The plan can't do everything, and in reality, we can't do everything, all of the ideas all at once. So what we looked at is trying to identify the themes that if we could make the progress on these 10 items, we can make some significant progress on these 10 items, the district would be well on its way to achieving a better future. So the ideas that we're going to present tonight all revolve around these 10 ideas. And there's a lot of overlap in these ideas. Before I get into talking about the ideas, I want to sort of introduce a different way of looking at the district, because up until now, we've always just talked about it as one full district, but we see different areas in the district emerging which call for a different response when we talk about ideas and planning. The first is this commercial core of the historic district, which is from Armenia to about Albany and up to about, I think that's, I'm not sure what that street is, about 3 streets up on Howard Avenue. This is where the largest concentration of the historic structures. There are some vacant lots, but there's quite a few of a good urban fabric, a good frame. And this is where we think is what we would call the traditional West Tampa commercial core, I don't want to say a downtown area, but that's kind of what we would look at it, is that that's the focus of the district. These 2 blocks from Albany to Rome, this is just a planner term, a transition area. There's a lot of single family, there's some churches, there's some office, there's the school, there's some property owned by the school district and the housing authority. There's no real dominant character. It looks like it's going to need some time over the next few years to sort of emerge as some character that would support the district. It's critically important because it serves as a link between the commercial core and the area to the east, but we don't see it right at this point having a character, and we think that's something that will emerge over the next few years. Of course, the West River area. This is an area which is pretty much planned out and will continue to drive a lot of the redevelopment potential into the future. The area has the residential that's on the north side of Main Street. Of course, there's a grocery store at the end of Main Street. And then south of Main Street, there are plans for 1 or 2 office buildings, possibly a museum, an African American museum or African museum is some of the ideas that are being talked about, and some parking. So the point being, this area will continue to have a lot of activity, and it's already planned out. The goal is to make sure that it proceeds and includes a lot of pedestrian-oriented activity, and at the same time that the rest of the district is linked to it. And then this area up on North Howard, just call it a North Howard segment. It's the extension of the commercial core. It has much more vacant lots than the area south near the center of Main Street, and so it shows a lot of redevelopment potential into the future. And so this area could be one whole commercial street, but we think that this is going to have to fill in before it finds its true functional purpose within the district. So this is how we look at the district in 4 different areas. And as we talk about some of the ideas, we'll talk about some of how these ideas play out in these 4 different areas. When we're looking at the district, again, this is from a planner perspective. We tend to look at things from the standpoint of, what are the major entrances to the district? Where's the key activity areas? Where do we see how pedestrian connections and so forth? So we're going to give you one way of looking at it. Planners will look at it differently. So what we're presenting tonight is one way, but others may see it slightly different. But it's all trying to get an idea of how the district can function within the context of people and the other activity around it. But these 3 areas are the gateways to the district. This would suggest some sort of treatment. Maybe it's a special type of signage or lighting or some sort of a monument or something that sort of signifies that you're arriving into the district or that you're leaving the district. The gateway at North Boulevard is especially important because it is also the gateway to the waterfront. You have to make a quick little bit of a walk, but it's also that entry into the waterfront area. Next are these major activity areas. This is where we would like to see, or we would suggest, or that we are seeing areas of major activity. Of course, you got the commercial core again that I talked about, the West River area, which will evolve into a major activity area, and then at the end with the grocery store and the waterfront, we expect to be another major activity center. And North Howard, again, with the vacant land that's in this area, we think this could be a major activity area and can sort of balance what's happening on both sides of Howard. Where this comes into play is that if you're a pedestrian or someone in the district, it's these activity areas that you're going to, and the idea that you want to get to one activity area to the other is something that we would like to link. And the way we link those major activity areas is by looking what's happening in between and trying to create some minor activity areas. So we see something that should be created here. We don't know what that is yet, but we think there should be something created here which draws people and pedestrians. And again, in the middle of this transitional area, that something might occur. It may not be exactly in the intersection, but the idea is that if you're a pedestrian and you're here, and you see something within a block, 2 blocks down, you may say, let's take a walk and head down there. Or and then when you're down here, you might say, let's go see what's happening down there. And eventually this walk, which today you might see a fairly arduous walk for this mile, might be something that becomes a much easier trek to make. And then of course, everything is connected by a pedestrian connection to make it easier as you get through. And then rounding it all off are some treatments at the intersections that add some, first of all, pedestrian safeties, making sure the vehicles are managed properly, and then adding some extra interest. So this is just a way of organizing the district, and as we move into the actual plan, how we would try to build upon some of these elements. And again, this is just one way of looking at it. Again, other planners may have a slightly different way, but the idea is trying to figure out where the activity is today, where can we create new activity, and how can we link the district so it becomes a place of some vibrancy. So let's talk about some ideas. Before I get into the ideas, tonight these are just ideas. They're all presented so you can think about them. Hopefully we've hit the mark based on everything that we've heard. And then at the end, you'll give us an opportunity to voice your support or comments about the ideas. The other thing is that we're going to use the existing district to show how these ideas could be put into play, put in place. So we'll be showing different buildings, different properties, and so if you see an idea on a property that you own or your own business, and you don't like that idea, nothing that we're saying here tonight means that anybody's going to be doing anything to anybody's property or business. But we wanted to show what are the possibilities. That being said, if you like the idea, you see something that's happening on your property or your business, then that would be a great thing for everybody if we move forward. So please take it with that in mind. If these are ideas, and we're trying to show how, if the ideas are applied a certain way, that they might affect some change. The first idea, if it gets back to that one community theme, is improving the appearance of the district. This is what we think is a very critical idea. And the first part of that is placing a higher value on the public realm than maybe what it's been in the past. And it's really placing a higher emphasis on the maintenance of the district and to clean it up, to make sure it stays clean, and placing more attention to it. Downtown and Ybor City have their specialized clean teams, which are there to clean the district. They also provide some other added support to people in the district. Whether Main Street adopts a clean team approach or contracts with with a company to provide some extra maintenance, we think that it needs to do that in some way to get some enhanced cleanliness and maintenance for the district. It's the idea that a clean district is someplace that people want to visit, and it can help attract others. And it's when a district is kept clean and others and everyone is participating in it, it helps to perpetuate that same pattern. One of the biggest recommendations, we think, is taking a look at the streetscape. We think there's some really strong opportunities of looking at the street, the trees, how everything is organized. The idea, the boxes on the right are just examples of what streetscape elements include. These images, they're all from different places, so they don't really coordinate with each other, but it's trying to come up with a coordinated theme. And it could include enhanced sidewalks, crosswalks, gateway treatments, better paving, cleaning and repaired sidewalks, and the list goes on. These are things that would have to be looked at and developed into a cohesive theme. But it might end up where on the left, this is what the scene is today. Maybe sometime in the future, after a streetscape, it might look a little bit like this. The trees have have been extended out to the sidewalk through bulb outs to create a little bit more of a frame and make room for parking. You can see it's cleaned up a little bit. Of course, in this picture, the wires have been brought down And so that might be something to look at. And maybe it's possible, depending on the feasibility and the cost, maybe it's possible to return Main Street back to its original brick pattern and give it back its historic feel as part of its virtual, or excuse me, its visual appeal. But this is something we would think that the next step would be to develop the actual streetscape plan, figure out what the cost is, and put it all together. The School of Architecture, on one of their presentations, had a before and after view of Main Street. And one of the things that we thought were interesting, they added these elements called parklets, and they're showing up all over the country. Parklets are these ways to extend the living space out into the street. The sidewalks on Main Street are not wide enough in some areas to accommodate outdoor cafes and pedestrian movements and trees and so forth. So parklets are a way to extend the sidewalk to create areas of sitting. There are a couple of them in downtown Tampa right now that have been installed recently, and we think that maybe this is an opportunity on Main Street to provide a way for restaurants to create some outdoor seating. On Howard Avenue, there is a repaving project planned for later this year. They're going to, the repaving will result in also some reducing of the speeds from 40 to 35 miles an hour. They're going to remove these curb extensions, which really haven't, they may work, I'm not even sure they work from the safety and the traffic. They certainly aren't visually appealing. So these are going to be removed. They're going to install new curb ramps for ADA compliance, and then push button street crossings. Most of it's going to be for enhancing the safety of the street and hopefully reducing some of the speeding. A street that might look like this could look a little bit more like this with some enhanced sidewalks and some new paving. This picture is exactly the same as the picture on the left, except for the paving has been sort of made to look a little newer, and some enhanced sidewalks and of course some people. So even with the paving pattern, the district looks a little better as it is, better than it does currently. When we talk about streetscape priorities, because a streetscape construction can be minor or it can be major, and the cost can vary depending on where the construction is going to go. So in this, we would, again, going back to our functional look at the district, we would think that the first outlays of streetscape would be in this district, really try to improve the theme, to create that look in its commercial core. The second area would be these two areas of North Howard and then the transition area as it develops. We think West River, a lot of it is from the sidewalk edge to the building is either already planned or is going to occur as part of the development. We don't know. We don't believe that it has to have the exact same treatment as we see in the core, but just something that's consistent and creates a pedestrian connection to the water. Another item, community theme, was addressing the vacant lots and the buildings. I'm not going to go through all the pictures. You've seen them all. We know that there's vacant lots and vacant buildings in the district. In fact, when we did this study, we counted 48 vacant parcels, about a little over 5 acres, and 15 vacant businesses at about 27,000 square feet. What that shows is that there's a lot of opportunities in the vacant building and vacant lot area to promote redevelopment. It doesn't have to always come with an existing building that has a business in it that might turn over. There's a lot of opportunities in the vacant area to create new growth for the district. We look at it that what the CRA with the CRA that has powers for redevelopment should focus on what we call catalyst projects, and those are projects that are designed to create change into the district. And the kind of change we're talking about is a change that supports the overall vision of the district, that creates jobs. Some can dramatically increase the tax base, which automatically increases the tax increment financing trust fund, which then can be used for other redevelopment activities. And then some can also spur additional development, which again can benefit the district. May require some land assembly or some acquisition, which is one of the powers of the CRA. And we would suggest that the CRA begin to look at those opportunities to begin banking land where it can for redevelopment opportunities. Some of the examples of projects that we think are catalyst projects, the streetscape project is a catalytic project itself, because once we start changing the street and improving its appearance, it will signal to the market that things are changing, and that in many cases can create the right environment for new investment. A boutique hotel, a small boutique hotel that's in the district, I think we have a lot of opportunity. We've seen this happen in the Soho area, also in Ybor City, where a small hotel that was able to blend into the existing fabric. And in West Tampa, it just seems like a natural location for one. You're close to the interstate, you're close to downtown, you're close to all of the other major activities. It wouldn't be anything for somebody to come in for a weekend for a Bucks game or for any of the major festivals and want to stay at a hotel in the center part of West Tampa. Any kind of a theme development, like an arts development or a restaurant, as long as it's not connected, and this is just our personal view, as long as it's not connected with a chain that anybody can see in any city, the idea that it's something that's very unique that you can only see in West Tampa would be a great draw. Of course, mixed use residential, any of the key services like a pharmacy, a bank, a doctor's office, these type of things, they're not really huge developments in the minds of many, but they can serve as a catalyst for a lot of local support, a lot of from the neighborhoods, and that is really one of the areas that we think the district can really excel in, is by serving the local community. I'm going to talk a little bit later on as we go on about a parking lot and a parking garage, and also how elementary school redevelopment can play into this. But one of the ways to make it happen, because it's always easy to talk about catalytic projects and trying to promote redevelopment, but one of the ways that it can actually work is by sponsoring a development forum for the Main Street District. This has happened in West Shore and downtown for the last 25 years, where each of those organizations have an annual development forum to showcase the district, what's happened, where it's going, where its challenges are in the future, and sort of the opportunities for new employers, new developers, and so forth. And in Main Street, we think that's an opportunity that could really happen, where it's an opportunity to tell the Main Street neighborhood commercial district story, identify available properties and desirable projects, invite developers, investors, deal makers, and facilitate connections. It doesn't matter if some property owners don't want to participate, they don't have to. What matters is that the property owners that want to participate have a place where they can meet, and if there's developers or people, real estate brokers that want to get in touch with those property owners, there's a way that can happen. And the idea here is just to be able to tell the story, what the opportunities are, and let the natural flow of business development take place afterwards. Rather than going out one development at a time, let's just bring everybody together and see what can happen. And maybe something like this can happen. Again, this is a street along Main Street. The principle that we look at here is that you have the vacant lot on the left, the vacant buildings on the right, and maybe through the streetscape project and also through the development forum, there is some discussion which results in a street that looks a little bit more like this, but there's a mixed use project on the right to fill in a vacant lot. And then on the left, the buildings that were vacant now have been remodeled and they're now open for business, and people are using those businesses. And again, if we're able to return the street back to its brick, the brick paving of yesteryear, then it gives another completely different look. But these are things that can happen when the district works together, What it requires, though, is willing partners all along the way. That's willing property owners, willing business owners, the willing residents, all to look at possibilities of how the district can redevelop in the future. And the CRA is one of the primary entities that can facilitate that kind of discussion. I mentioned the elementary school. This is Dunbar School. Everybody's familiar with it. It takes up a full block and is, from an urban design standpoint, just a challenge in where it's located. Obviously, we'd like to see a more compact design, a better orientation to Main Street. Maybe there's a public-private partnership out there, but this would be a long-term option in terms of anything that would happen at Dunbar. And there's a lot of things that would have to occur. In the West River area, the schools that are located in West River, as part of the redevelopment, the developers and the school district are going to look at potential reorientation of those schools, and is there a better design and can it be rebuilt into the district? Maybe there's a role that this site can play as well. So not that it has to, but we just think that maybe there should be some attention on how this site can evolve over the next several years. And again, this is not a short term. This is something that could be 10, 15 years down the road, but we wanted to put it on the radar screen. At the very least, the connection from Dunbar into the district really should have some attention. I mean, this is what it looks like today. You got the long fence on the right, the trees are spaced nice, but they're just not mature enough to provide any kind of level of shade or protection. So we think at least, here's an image of just putting some sort of art along the wall, and then maybe some, hopefully, I'm not sure how long the trees will take to grow, or if they could be replaced with something a little bit more mature, but some better landscaping, something that would soften up this walk, and maybe some additional lighting to give it more of a pedestrian feel as you're walking along the street. Safety is one of the biggest items that came up in all of our meetings. We see it as moving from a different area from safety to something a little bit more broad. In many of the discussions that I had with people that live in Old West Tampa and near the Main Street district, they would describe the district when they grew up as being a very safe and a very nurturing place to live. The type of place that the neighbors would look out for each other, look out for each other's kids, especially those that lived at North Boulevard Homes, and how it was a really true community of people looking out for each other. The district is, because of the efforts of the Tampa Police Department over the past several months, the district is much safer than it was several months ago, but we want to see it move to a place where it is much more secure, where parents feel that it's okay, feel fine, or a place where children can sit on a stoop and everybody feels it's safe enough or secure enough for that to happen, where friends can get together on the street, share their day and enjoy what's happened through their week and so forth. And on the right, where a mother might be saying hello or saying goodbye to her child and not having any worries about what happens in the next step. So the idea is try to move the district to a much more secure place when it comes to safety. So obviously there's a variety of different things that have to occur. First of them is improving the condition of the public realm, as we talked about earlier. And this goes through not only the streets, it's the alleys, it's the appearance. It's just making it a place that everyone knows that there's some attention being paid to the area, and people in the area care about the district. Continuing the security cameras and the regular police patrols, that they've been a big help in stemming some of the tide. Sponsoring regular neighborhood cleanups, and I understand that this is already occurring in the district. So those individuals and businesses and residents that are participating in that should be commended for taking on that initiative. I mentioned the alleys, and we'll talk about the alleys a little bit more later on, but the alleys really need that extra attention. And again, I understand that the CRA has announced a program to have a crew come in and clean the alleys and add some extra maintenance to it. And again, that's another positive step But the alleys really do need that attention because too much can happen out of sight, and which can create problems for the district in the long run. Believe it or not, encouraging more development will help make the district safer because you now have contractors that are working during the day who are providing that sort of view, an ongoing view of the area. And then when they leave and they're done with their mission, they're replaced by a business which is there during the day. And then the design, we call it eyes on the street design, where the buildings are designed to minimize the hiding places, or the places where things, where illegal dumping can occur, where there's loitering can occur, all those kind of things, through an environmental design approach, designing the district where it is much easier to see and feel safe in that area. And an idea that it's emerged, creating a neighborhood safe zone. And what that really is, it's modeled after the existing Neighborhood Watch program. We're all familiar with Neighborhood Watch. We know it works. But the idea of the Neighborhood Watch programs are usually on larger areas in the neighborhoods. And this would be applying that same principle to the district and a few blocks off the district, a smaller area. It would involve the commercial property owners, the business owners, the churches, everybody in the district coming together and providing that communication and commitment to look out for the neighborhood and look out what's happening. So again, applying the Neighborhood Watch, the regular meetings, working with the police department to help make the community safe. This is something, however, that can only be implemented by the people in the community. Not something that the city or the TPD would create. We would all participate, but it's something that really needs to be led by the community. But we think there's some opportunities for it to work. We know that the business, many of the businesses have been meeting on a regular basis. They meet quarterly with the city staff. We think that's a good mechanism that might be expanded to create some more communication on safety. Preserving and connecting with history. What the district has, again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the best examples of historic architecture in the city. And so we think that the preservation efforts should continue. Creating a brand around the history, we think is a big investment that will pay off in later years. People love historic districts. It's that idea of finding a place with a character and a sense of charm. So trying to create some sort of brand around the history that can be marketed locally as well as nationally. So looking for grants, low cost loans for historic preservation. New structures should be designed to fit into the context of the district. We know that developers like to have the freedom of expression, freedom of design. And it doesn't seem like a big deal until a postmodern building shows up in a historic district and it's there for a long time. People all of a sudden realize how out of context it really is. Another idea that sort of evolved through some of the discussions with people who lived in the community. I took this picture of the Diaz Corner drugstore, and it always struck me about who were the Diaz or what was the Diaz Corners drugstore. So I tried to do some searching. I really couldn't find much on the corner drugstore itself, but I ran across historic pictures of West Tampa, and many of you have seen a lot of these pictures. And the one on the bottom left struck me of Patrons because it's the individuals. I'm not sure if it's the owner or just some kids, but the idea that I'm drawn to this historic image of people that I don't know in this image. And I started thinking that West Tampa has a tremendous number of people who have lived in the community 50, 60, 70 years, their entire life. Excuse me. And they have stories of the community to share. They probably have images of the community to share. I would have never known that Phillips Field existed had it not been for some of the people that live in West Tampa to tell me that story. And a few years from now, we may not have anybody around that can tell us about the rivalry between the West Tampa Little League and the Yellow Jackets Little League, and all of the things that those two little leagues brought to this area. And so the idea of this historic marker or this plaque program is, what if there was a way to reach out to the people that have memories of the West Tampa, that they have images of themselves or their family or friends in West Tampa from the historic era, not historic, but from yesteryear, and then create some sort of a plaque that can be created and displayed into the businesses. Maybe the businesses can sponsor those plaques, and these images can start showing up throughout West Tampa as the redevelopment emerges. We heard so many times that the local residents wanted to be part of the redevelopment. So why not create an avenue that their memories can be embedded into the redevelopment as the district grows. So it's an idea, and it's something I think maybe could be pursued. And I wouldn't be surprised at some point in time, if there were enough of these historic plaques throughout the district, that some enterprising young person would create a history tour based on the memories and the history of the people who lived in West Tampa. Excuse me. And of course, more local murals. We're very familiar with the one at Salsinas Park. The one on the left is a mural that's inside the Caldico, one of the Caldico buildings that the owners uncovered when they were doing some remodeling. And this is a mural that goes back to the 1920s. So we think that more murals that celebrate the local history, the artists, the people, all those kind of things are ways to keep the local history alive in West Tampa. Supporting existing businesses, again, this was something that we heard throughout our meetings. The CRA has done a great job in responding to this need. They have several programs that are underway or that they're planning to announce or moving towards developing funding for. Several for the existing commercial property owners that are designed to help them take their existing property and prepare it for some sort of redevelopment. So it helps them get past some of that startup, and we think that is a great idea. They have a program for existing residential property owners that want to improve their properties, and then they also have one for neighborhood organizations, small grants for the neighborhoods in the CRA that want to do something for their own neighborhood. For existing businesses and entrepreneurs, there's the Florida Small Business Development Council. They're located on Palm Avenue. They provide assistance to entrepreneurs and marketing business. Most of the services are free. And then, of course, the West Tampa CDC, who can assist entrepreneurs in writing business plans and developing their plans moving forward. The CDC is going to be part of the West Tampa Technology Center, which is part of the Rome Avenue redevelopment for related urban and Tampa Housing Authority. And they'll be developing programs that help with the skill training, and then also be available for the entrepreneurial support. So we think these programs are all designed to help existing businesses, help existing entrepreneurs grow as the redevelopment grows. Image and branding, we mentioned this is something that is an idea that should be looked at. When you look at the district and you look at the neighborhoods that are around it, there's almost 19,000 people that live within a mile and a half of the Howard and Main intersection. And the question is, what do those people want? And it's really something that the district should try to position itself to be the shopping center, the retail center for these residents. They're right there in their backyard. We did the survey earlier in this process. We asked the people what type of businesses they would prefer. This is what we received at that time. Our survey was very small, very localized. We think there should be more of this to determine what is the market demand for businesses, and then being able to provide that information to people who are interested in starting a business. Not only do you have the number of people that are living there, but the district is growing. We have the West River project with West River and the Rome Yard, which is will start construction over the next year and a half. We expect to see between them the apartments that are being built on Howard Avenue, the Rome area apartments, something like 7,000 new residents to locate within a mile of Howard in Maine. And then, of course, University of Tampa has always 9,000 or plus or minus students that move into the area, many of them very close to the main street. Again, these are all customers, potential customers to the district, and so forth. And then if you look just regionally, the district is located within 3 miles. You're within downtown, Ybor City, the airport, Raymond James, Midtown, West Shore, Hyde Park, and Davis Island. So within a short drive, the district can capitalize on all of the elements and the people in this area. So the bottom line is the district is located in an area where it can take advantage of a strong local market through the neighborhoods. It has a growing market around it of additional residents and students, and it's situated in an area of some very large economic drivers that can bring people in, through, and around. So the big question is, how does a busy business person reach all of these people? And one way to look at it is that they can do it themselves, which is very difficult, or we can begin to look at implementing the principles of the Main Street process. When I say Main Street, I'm not talking about our Main Street. I'm talking about the National Main Street America approach. And this is an organization that's been active for about 70 years, and it primarily supports and is geared towards the revitalization of small historic towns and districts. It's based on 4 key points built on economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization, and trying to showcase the district. Many of these approaches overlap with the Community Redevelopment Agency, except that over in recent years, the state has really constricted what a CRA can do with its funds. It's really moved it into where it has to be almost all physical development. It's really difficult to really do some of the other type of activities. But to the extent that the CRA can undertake these activities, we think they should. If it requires contracting with another entity that does this, and one opportunity might be looking at the Tampa Downtown Partnership. They have a special services district. Is there a way of developing an association with that special services district and extending it into the part of Main Street to allow to pick up those same type of benefits? Just an idea to look at. Orlando has a very successful Main Street approach. They have 10 districts, which are all built around the Main Street. Each one has its own identity. It generates its own promotion, advertising, and then its own character and redevelopment and events. This gets into the sort of something we have to think about. If you put Main Street Neighborhood Commercial District into Google today, we don't know exactly where it would go. We hope in the future, we don't know if this is the right name for the district. It gets back to that image and branding, but the idea that if the district has a name that people can recognize, that it ought to have a virtual presence that people can get to. So some sort of website that's geared to the district. Much like when you search for West Shore Plaza or International Plaza, it brings you to the Plaza page where it tells you what's happening in the mall with the retailers, the choices, and all those kind of things. So we think there's an opportunity to reinforce the branding and the virtual presence of the district as well. Connecting with West River and the water, This is a very, I think, a significant opportunity for the district. The West River project is well under its way. I think it's probably about 30–40% under construction, and more of it is underway. The West River, the Rome Yard, will begin, as I mentioned, construction hopefully sometime within the next year or so. That project will have just under 1,000 mixed income units, 30,000 square feet of commercial space, 24,000 square feet of community space, economic impact of almost $400 million. Related Urban will hire an estimated 1,860 workers. Many of them will come from the local area. But when you think about it, 1,800 workers, that's just on this project. It's not counting what's happening on West River. But that's a lot of coffee in the morning. That's a lot of breakfasts. That's a lot of lunches. That's a lot of burgers after work, a lot of drinks after work. Many of them come through to get to the Rome Avenue Yard. They come through the Howard and Main Street intersection on their way to the yard. So every day they're getting exposed to the district. So every day that a new restaurant opens, every day that a new retail space opens, is an opportunity to introduce that business to a market here. So we get back to the image, the branding, and what the Main Street approach could offer. It's the idea of working with the Tampa Housing Authority and Related Urban to help promote the businesses in West Tampa. Again, it's 1,800 people. Not everybody is going to show up, but all it takes is a few and a few satisfied customers that can help spread the word. We talk about, was talking primarily about the business connection to West River. There are some physical connections that we think are important to connect. On the right is the entire West River plan with the West River and the Rome Avenue plan overlaid. We think, of course, along Main Street, trying to improve that streetscape connection, trying to make it easy to walk, get residents into this area where we think quite a bit of activity is going to occur is important. This purple line is a alleyway that we think has the opportunity to be upgraded and maybe turned into a bike trail or at least a walking path where people can get right from the Howard Avenue through the trail into the district. These two streets that frame Ray Park, we think are very good candidates for making it more pedestrian friendly. They connect Ray Park to the Fremont Park, and from Fremont Park, this line through the district is the pedestrian walkway that's going to be funded as part of the Riverwalk on the west side of the river. So this provides an opportunity if we can connect these areas in the pedestrian. And from what we can tell, the connection really isn't that onerous. It could use some better trees to make it a little bit more attractive to walk, and maybe some pedestrian lighting to give it the signal that these are dedicated pedestrian connections. But the idea that we want to connect the district physically and then also business-wise with the West River so that there can be the symbiotic relationship between the two developments and create something that's got a lot of synergy. And where we're going with this is to do something that was talked about when the West River plan was developed. And that was to open up the riverfront to all of West Tampa with the removal of the Rome Avenue Operations Center and creating these new linkages to the water. And now it's extending the link to the West River or the Main Street district. The idea that people in Main Street can feel that they are just a walk away. In this case, it might be a little bit of a long walk, but we like to make it a pleasant walk. But if people can feel that they're a walk away from the water, that adds a lot of value to living in West River for everyone. The public spaces, obviously, we would make sure that they are upgraded to the best that they can be, that we create those connections and integrate the spaces with each other. The Parks and Recreation Department just announced that they're going through a very intensive park and recreation master plan, where they're going to look at the majority of their existing public parks and identify what improvements need to be made. We think that the CRA and the residents of West Tampa need to participate in that very actively to ensure that these spaces are designed in a way that reflects the preferences of the community. We also think that if the private park ever were to become available for sale, that either the CRA or the city should acquire it and turn it into a public park. Right now, it is a park, but it's a park owned by a private entity. If they ever were to choose to make that available, we think the CRA and the city should bring that into the public arena. Another idea of involving existing residents and businesses into the overall redevelopment of the district. We call this tapping into the local energy. The idea that trying to find the local people to be part of a farmer's market, having local festivals, the food truck rallies, those kind of things. I know some of these ideas have already been discussed. I think there is a farmers market, which is a small farmers market, which is starting to grow, and we would support these types of activities for a number of reasons. It's a great way to bring the community together. If there's an entrepreneur that's in the crafts or the food thing, there's an opportunity for them to test what they have with the market. It's a perfect way to unite the community. You know, that idea that people who see each other, help each other out, are all part of the same community. It attracts people from the outside, lets them see West Tampa and what it has to offer. And of course, it is another element that can help promote security by connecting people, connecting faces, and providing activity in the district. We also think that we should not to forget about young adults and try to look at evolving young adults as much as possible. The Ray Community Center, I had a discussion with Rashad Williams. Many of you may know him, who runs works for the city's park departments, and he runs the program there. He's getting ready. He may have already started, but a youth program, a teen program at the community center this year, which really focused on teens and what really they want to do. We got to talking about this idea that maybe there's an opportunity for businesses to be able to be part of these the program like this, to come in and mentor teens, let them know what it's like to run a restaurant or an air conditioning business or a real estate business, and to just give them some ideas of what it takes to run a business or work in a business. It also has that side effect of, again, connecting part of the community, in this case it's the businesses, with teens. And sometimes you never know down the road that a business might need somebody for some after school work, and he's already met some teens, and he may want to provide some job opportunities in the future. Short form videos, you know, the things that we see on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Teens are heavily interested in these types of outlets and in that type of expression. And many of them want to become the next Instagram sensation. Why not have a program that allows teens to do short form videos, but their backdrop is the West Tampa community or the businesses or the district itself. What if you're a business and you have an ice cream or a root beer or something that you want to market? What if a teenager was able to do a short form video, and now they're blasting that item out to thousands in the area? A lot can happen in this, and it can generate an incredible amount of attention. I included this image. This is actually from a video. Many of you can check it out. It's Grand Rapids, City of Grand Rapids was, which has had some struggles over the year, was really completely in the dumps in 2011. And somebody had this idea of creating a YouTube video. And most of the people in the community thought it was crazy. But they sold the idea and they created this video and had several hundred of the community participating in it. And they were all lip syncing to the music of American Pie. And from this image, you can see that nearly 6 million people have viewed that image. And what they saw were a bunch of the community standing behind their town, but they also saw a beautiful town and really changed the image of Grand Rapids at that time. So don't dismiss the power of some of these short form videos and the people that enjoy making them. So maybe there's a business in the district that is involved in videos or cinematography that would be open to be a mentor and help maybe guide some young adults into this business. Fixing the alleys. Like I mentioned this several times. We think the alleys need to be cleaned. We think they need to be fixed. I know everybody that we talk to feels the same way, that we go on and talk about all the problems with alleys. But in terms of looking at the alleys, we think that alleys should be looked at in terms of turning the alleys into assets, something of great value. So establishing that regular cleaning and mowing is a high priority. Restoring the alleys, trying to get the roadbed restored so it is back to normal. We see some options from a planning perspective. We talk in terms of passive options and active options. Passive options is creating some themed alleys, sponsored art walks, or interactive art. Most of the alleys, not all of them, still serve residential development, so they can't be closed. Some portions might be able to be closed as long as there's some access provided for the property owner. But under the passive alleys, it's really trying to improve the appearance and how it looks. The active strategies involve doing something with the actual space. Again, you have to have control of the space and make sure that it can work. That might be more of a long-term option. So we would look at maybe trying some pilot projects. This is some ideas of what passive strategy. When we talk about passive strategies, this is what it means. It's things that are hanging maybe from the air to create some visual distinction, lighting of the alleys, some art on the walls. Of course, you have this assumes we're working with the property owners to get the right permission. Maybe it's more murals and so forth, but it's trying to bring life to the alleys through lighting and design. The active strategies are a little bit more, as you would imagine, obviously a little bit more assertive. It's creating spaces where people can perform, maybe some sitting, restaurants. We do think there's an opportunity to look into creating a bike trail because that preserves the integrity of the function of the alley. And when we get into parking, this is the last major theme, parking. We see parking, many people look at parking as sort of that last thing or something they have to deal with because of development. We look at it that parking should be a driver of the district, in that if the district can solve the parking problem up front, it makes the redevelopment part of it much easier. Because in a district like the Main Street district, a business is, first of all, constrained by the building in which they're going into, especially if it's an architectural or historic building. And then they have to figure out where are they going to put the parking. And many times they don't have enough space to do what they want to do. So if there was a way of creating a central parking or parking somewhere else, close to a business and a business, then we'll only need to worry about what they have to do for the business. And this could be done by constructing some city-owned or CRA-managed lots or something similar to that. We know that CRA is getting ready to undertake a parking plan. So a lot of these specific questions could be addressed in that plan. And we support that initiative. We didn't do anything in terms of the actual details because we knew this plan was going to be was on the horizon. But a couple of things that come out. There's a city-owned parking lot right in the core of the district, has about 15 spaces. We would recommend that the space stay, the city retain the ownership, at least until the parking plan is done and it becomes part of an overall strategy. And the CRA might want to look at ways to expand the footprint as they move forward. This was an image that the USF class put together. What they envisioned, what they saw was a possibility of an actual parking structure in that block, which might be rimmed with retail and providing a central parking facility and some retail that would serve the district. We also see opportunity on Green Street, the parcels that are all line Green Street, as being opportunities for parking, either a parking lot or a parking structure, primarily because it's located on Green Street, which is connected directly to the interstate. And Green Street itself would drive traffic, would keep traffic from going into the neighborhood. It's all going along a major street where there isn't the neighborhood impacts would be less. And if you can imagine yourself being in Ybor City in that historic district, where along 7th Avenue there are the historic frontage of buildings, and then behind the buildings there is parking either provided by the property owner or by the city or some other entity, but it allows the district to maintain its integrity and provides parking that can be used throughout the district. So before I get into the implementation, there were a couple of items I know people may ask about. It was just mostly about trying to bring in the time, or at least create a presentation that has a little, within a reasonable amount of time. But we didn't talk about residential development, but we think residential development should be encouraged. And when we roll out the plan, we'll look at ways that the city can encourage additional residential development that fits within the context and the character of the development of the community, not just residential development just for the sake of residential development. And then someone may ask about transit. We didn't deal with transit per se because transit is an issue that requires many decisions beyond the CRA and beyond the district and beyond us. But we think that there are some plans out there that bring transit near the district or through the district. We think that the CRA should be monitoring those activities and focusing on the redevelopment of the district and trying to position itself to be transit ready if those options do materialize. But in terms of implementation, we're in the process. Once we get the feedback from tonight's meeting, we'll actually start working on the implementation plan. And our goal is to produce what we call a roadmap for implementation, not just giving a bunch of ideas, but to try to frame the ideas in terms of which ones do we think should occur in the short run, which ones we think are probably ones that could occur later, then which are maybe more aspiring ideas that are going to require more time. And to the extent that we can find put some cost numbers to them, we'll do that as well. But we want to leave the CRA with some information, enough roadmap or direction that they would be able to get started on some of these initiatives. So this is where we could use your help. We have a little bit of a poll here, if I can pull it up. So based on what you've seen, do you generally agree with the direction of the plan? We'll give another minute or so. Okay, just a few more seconds. So you can see, I think it's a very high support list. I got 97% when I look at it. So that means we're on the right track. I appreciate that. So our next steps, we like to receive more feedback from you on through our email, tampaplanning@tampagov.net. This presentation will be on our website. It takes us about 5 days to put the video on. We'll put the presentation on, upload it tomorrow so that it can be available for anyone that wants to see the presentation. Our next steps are based on the feedback and the initial direction that we received tonight, is that we'll go back and now look and work with the city departments and the CRA to hone the ideas into specific recommendations that fit in the plan, which will be very close, I think, to what we presented tonight based on the initial feedback that we heard, and as long as we don't get any major surprises in our feedback. And as I mentioned, we'll identify that action steps, the roadmap, so to speak, that we can put into the implementation plan. We hope that to have produce the final plan by the end of July to be able to present back to the community. So with that concludes my presentation, and we're ready to hear any feedback that all of you have. So if you could just raise your hand or signify in the chat, or not a chat, but in the that you want to speak, and then we'll be able to recognize you. You see Michael Randolph?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Just a couple announcements and then some follow-up. On July the 10th, the West Tampa CDC is going to be giving a how to do a professional business plan. We've sent out the alert. In fact, I've dropped something in the box if people want to click on that link on how to do a professional business plan. The other thing we have coming up is we're setting up a meeting with Hotline, the superintendent, to meet with the community related to our concerns related to transportation. We believe that West Tampa, based on the planning department numbers, it's like it's got 100,000 people that's within 15 minutes to get to West Tampa. One of the problems in West Tampa is parking. One of the ways we can solve that problem, if we had more buses by way of Hotline coming into West Tampa, drop people off, people can get a meal, buy some stuff, and be on their merry way. So we're having a conversation with Hotline in reference to that, because that's part of our economic growth. The other thing that's coming up is specifically for those businesses that are on Main Street, specifically African American businesses. We want to work with them in putting together a marketing and branding strategy to bring more dollars into that location. Again, I want to stop off by saying July the 10th. A lot of you should have gotten that information by now. It's going to be a very informative meeting on how to do a professional business plan, and we plan to have people from around the country to take part of that. However, West Tampa, if you come, part of that plan for West Tampa is you are going to be enrolled in our 8-week course on how to do a professional business plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Jonathan Fagerlin?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Randy, how are you? I thank you very much for the presentation today. I just have a question on, I know the implementation plan is to do something towards July. Is this already something that's budgeted in the city's finances, or is this something more for the 2022 budget, or how does the financial aspect work in implementing a lot of these great ideas?
That's one of the things that when we talk to the departments, whether or not anything is actually funded in their budget. But most of these are assuming that depending on on the level of effort that there's going to be a new expense that may come from either the CRA, maybe the city, or maybe it's going to require a new revenue stream. So to answer your question, I would say a lot of the major expenses are not actually budgeted because we didn't have a budget going into the plan. And at this time, we don't have one established for it.
Okay.
Okay.
So does that get something? Is that something that gets passed through, a local voting, or is that just like different departments that are increasing taxes, or how does that generally kind of fund to a project like this?
Well, there's a lot of different elements of this plan. Some of them may find a place in a city budget. It could be an existing budget, or maybe a department puts it in a future budget. The CRA has money that's earmarked for redevelopment, so some of the funding that they have might be brought into it. There may be some grant funding that is provided or sought after in the future. So all of those things have to be looked at in terms of possibilities. But typically a plan like this, which has as many elements and as many items that have costs associated to them, is a long-range plan. It's not something else that all happens all at once. It just takes a little time to develop the funding mechanisms to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Sure. Leroy Moore.
Hello, Randy. Thank you. Really great, very informative. Good stuff. I really commend you guys as well as the community from the support that was shown there. I have just sort of two comments. And I'm looking at the presentation on my small cell phone, so I may have missed some of the detail, but you were showing early on the Main Street nodes, some nodes, and you specifically had a big node of activity at North Boulevard along Main, at Main and Rome, and I think Main and Howard. And I would just suggest you also look at Willow and Main Street. And the key thing about Willow, if there's no node of activity identified, there is just so much potential. That's a major north-south connector for the city. Willow goes all the way to Bayshore, and it comes all the way to the Hillsborough River through West Tampa. And if we're able to either get an easement through the Justin Stewart School property or redevelop those two schools, that could be your river to Bay Boulevard passage. So great circulation from a pedestrian and bicycle standpoint. And then I love the identification for this walkable Main Street. We are planning a number of restaurant destinations along Main through the West River site. And we are in discussion with Downtown Partnership. You mentioned clean teams and public safety and eyes on the road to create a greater sense of security and safety and enjoyment for people that will be frequenting the restaurant venues and retail venues along Main Street. They do an excellent job in downtown, and we're going to be looking at possibly contracting with them for the West River frontage all the way from North Boulevard to Rome to take care of our public realm and also to activate public spaces there. So being able to continue that all the way down to Howard is going to be, I think, important, whether it's through the partnership, through something new, but it's good to know that you guys are looking at those opportunities. But great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Leroy. Octavia Smith.
much. This presentation is wonderful. I just had a question regarding national transportation options. Has there been any thought to incorporate the Tico streetcar line as a part of this improvement of walkability and making transportation an option, considering you're so close to downtown Tampa and there is some old historical rails and things that could be probably utilized in that area or surrounding the West Tampa main corridor that you're talking about?
Yeah, there are some plans that have been identified for streetcar or some sort of commuter. One of them is on Cypress. Another one that Hart developed many years ago brings up. It's not a streetcar, but it's more of a light rail along Main Street. We can incorporate those. We also think there's but those, as we mentioned, those decisions require many other people outside this planning process to make a decision. But we plan to reflect them in the plan just to make sure they're documented. But there's also always an option to have some sort of rubber tire circulator that can be created that goes around North Boulevard in the West River and North Hyde Park and downtown. It just becomes that really is just a funding issue and an operational issue with the providers. But those are good points. Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Young.
Hi, Randy.
Hello
Thank
there.
you for the presentation. My question surrounds the parking, and I may have missed it, but you mentioned that there was a parking on your demonstration. You had a block that was circled or squared off, and you said the city owned that particular lot. What street was that on? And also, you in your presentation you mentioned Green Street. There was a several blocks in the diagram, and is that property owned by the city or are these also private property?
The city lot is located along Union and right. I think it's Mussolino. Is that I believe that's how it's pronounced. And then along Green Street, all of that land, I believe, is in private ownership. There is one lot that is owned by the school district. We identified just that that the location and the vacant lots make it appropriate or make it attractive for parking, whether it's in the short run or long run. That if funds are available, that they could be acquired for a parking lot or down the road.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Let's see who else. Rico Williams. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay.
Oops. Let's get you back on. I just clicked you off. There you go. All right, Rico.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you so much. I just had a question in regards to the survey that kind of spoke to businesses that the community would like to see. I think there was like grocery store, coffee shop, things of that nature. Have you guys already determined what businesses were going to be, kind of prioritized as far as, I guess, ownership groups or things of that nature? Or have you even gone that far to figure out what businesses are actually going to fill those spots moving forward? And if not, I guess, how could the community be involved in maybe helping filling out some of those businesses that ultimately end up on Main Street?
That's a good question. That survey was an early survey that we released as part of our when the process started, and just to get an idea of what the respondents at that time were interested in the district. So it's more of a barometer of interest. I think there was less than 100 respondents, so I wouldn't look at it as a definitive indication, but it gives us an indication of what that small sample would want. We would think that there would need to be some more surveying and communication with the residents to determine what really is the priorities. And then from there, it goes back to some of the principles that I talked about of working with the business owners, the property owners. If it's a business owner that's already has a restaurant, it's letting them know that maybe people in the community are looking for a certain type of good or service. If it's a property owner, letting them know that there's a potential for a certain type of business. So it's really communicating back to the businesses or the property owners, but at the same time, doing more outreach and surveying of the community to get a better understanding.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Joe Robinson. I think you just have to unmute yourself, Joe.
Am I unmuted now?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, it's a great presentation. A lot of work went into that. A lot of months went into that, and it's needed because it's a good overview of what could be done and what can be done. However, one of the biggest issues is how do you finance all of this? And CRA ain't got enough money to finance all of this, but it can be leveraged. And also federal government and all other agencies. So I suggest as this plan moves forward, because it wasn't identified necessarily in the presentation as funding sources. Identifies many funding sources depending on the needs that's been identified across the board. And I didn't hear you mention anything about the river walk that's coming, the $24 million river walk. That's a large integral piece of getting people to West Tampa over to our site, over to this part of town. But I'm not worried about that. This is going to have to be a phased overall plan. I see it taking probably 10 years to get it built out to where we're talking. But we've got new development coming to West Tampa without us having done anything except for to try to clean it up somewhat and to put a few cameras here and there. But we're getting development every day naturally because of the location. Your map that showed radiuses of 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, as you can see, this is a very, very highly valuable location in the city of Tampa, even more so better than downtown, because we have access easily to the interstate, on and off easily. We get the Midtown, we get the West Shore, we get the airport, we get International Mall, and so forth and so on. So even the Tampa Heights and what. So we're really centrally located, very centrally located. And that's one of the most things that's driven West Tampa for hundreds of years, really. It's its location. The other thing is the parking that was brought up about the city owns that lot there. One of the things that we have been talking about at the CRA is a parking garage, but we'd have to acquire the property all the way probably down, if not to Albany, but at least maybe the one house short of Albany. And from there all the way to Yoselina would be a strip that would be bordered by the alley on the south and or one house probably on the north, on the west, on the east, Yoselina on the east, west, and then Union on the north. That then could be made, and that's across the street from Roosevelt Valdez is having a lot of shootings. People sitting out there in them duplexes playing dominoes and whatever else. And so the vision would be a parking structure, maybe 3 stories with retail on the first level, on the street level. That way you would utilize some type of revenue from the structure, because parking structures don't pay for themselves necessarily. And it costs almost $12,000 a spot to do one, having did the design on the Lightning parking garage in 1998. That was the numbers then. So parking can be dealt with. However, one thing that we must have with this particular commercial plan is that we must take in consideration this commercial plan right now is sort of static. There's development going on that's live and virtual, and such as people are buying up these cigar factories. We've got a wine distribution company coming over. We got a production taking over the Sicilian Club building, and so forth and so on. So we need to make sure that when we're doing this plan, that we integrate the actual real-time development with what we're trying to do. And that is a way to accelerate this particular plan, because a lot of private investment is going on in West Tampa as we speak. Most of this here can be some private, some public partnership type thing, which we really haven't developed that much. That's why we had the U.S. Treasury Department, Melissa Mifflin, come in to tell us about how they leverage CRA funds throughout with banks, not CRA being Community Redevelopment Areas, but with the Community Reinvestment Act that banks got to comply to because of red line of such districts in West Tampa. And so those are funding sources that we need to take a serious look as we're going forward with this great plan that you guys have come up with of funding sources. We got to spend a lot of time on looking at some serious funding sources, especially with the nation looking at infrastructure improvements throughout. And eventually we're going to get there. So, and we got a friendly administration in Washington, D.C. for these type of Main Street projects, as you say. So I don't have a problem with anything you said. I just want to make sure that it's integrated with the rest of the development, such as the West River. We're talking about trying to get an African art museum down there in West Tampa. We're a National Historic District, but we're disrespected by FDOT because we don't have a sign off the interstate say this is a historic district, okay, which is nonsense. And that was one of the things they said is that show us the people coming off the interstate going down and doing anything in your historic district. And it's hard to get the various businesses, the various governments, libraries, education foundation, everybody that's over here in this area that's exiting Howard and Dominion to identify how much traffic we got coming through here. So that's something the city needs to do a better job of, is working with FDOT to identify that we are a National Historic District. That's a draw right there. And the last thing I say, down the road, what I see is a West Tampa app. Have an app that can identify various things within the core of West Tampa, all of West Tampa for that. But we need an app so that when people come down here and they hit the app, they want to know what something is. It pops up. You can get some information on it. And also, we need a designated, separate from what the city has given CRA, a page on the city's website. We need to have our own website for West Tampa, a little bit more social media, because we have a lot of younger people coming into town, moving in. Thanks to the housing authority, we still have some senior citizens that will still be around here. But we need to look at that type of thing too, as integrating this plan into technology and new technology that can be utilized down the road. But I think it's a great start. And I want to thank the city because they only picked two areas, us and one over in South Tampa. I don't know if it was Euclid or whatever street it was over there, that they are looking at a commercial district plan. So this is the first time, to my knowledge, the city has come up with a neighborhood commercial district plan here, and then one they're doing in Euclid. So I'm all for what you're saying and doing. The devil's in the details. That's true. Such as the school you talked about, Dunbar. However, we're pushing. There's a committee that between the housing authority, the CRA, the county, and the city and the school district to look at consolidating Justin Stewart to be knock that down, open up Willow to have access to the river, like Mr. Moore was saying, So Willa could go through there instead of getting an easement. Let's just relocate all that and get a new school, pre-K through 8th grade. Not now, but down the road, say within the next, it has to be planned now and put on the books as far as the school board is concerned. And we know that because of the redevelopment of the housing authority, right? There was a lot of students that left. And so the schools just stood under capacity right now. However, after we had our first meeting talking about this concept, it was decided to wait until the Rome Yard developer is selected before that goes any further, because the development of the Rome Yard and that developer would have greater access of working with the school district and the county and the city and the CRA to make that happen. So that's why it's sort of been on hold, but since Rome Yard is going to eventually go somewhere, I think it's time that we start those conversations back, because that's one of the major things that is causing issues. Is we've got all of that 25 acres of what was for a high school back in the early 50s or 60s that now is not a high school. Now it's got a track. They don't really use a track like that. Actually, it would be better if that track was integrated at the stadium of Blake. That it would be like most tracks is located outside the football field. And I think there should be enough room over there that if that track was moved and put inside the stadium, the football stadium at Blake, that would open up a lot of opportunity for the river, the city, and the residents. So I like what I'm hearing and seeing, and I want to appreciate you. I know it's been a hard struggle getting all this coordinated, Randy, including this town hall meeting. And I know that the city and I know that the mayor is committed behind all this. So she wouldn't have you guys over here even doing it. So I just want to thank you guys and let you know that we're going to keep doing what we're doing with the CRA. We're going to be looking at that. We've got various subcommittees that are going to be looking at that. And so we're very, very much interested, because this Main Street Neighborhood Commercial District Plan sits in the core of the CRA. And that's all I want to say, and we'll go from there. And thank you for the presentation. Mike, once again, great job, Randy, and your staff in the city of Tampa.
And connected the dots quite well, and I wanted to commend Mr. Gore on the presentation. And I didn't hear anything about the integration of the MLK Center. It sits over on Oregon, and it should be an intricate part also. And I just wanted to point out to Randy him getting with Rashard Williams over at Ray Park, because he's been doing a lot of programs with the youth, and we need to keep them integrated. And he mentioned some other programs that we probably could do. And he also mentioned a trail probably connecting Ray Park to Linear Park, which I thought was fantastic.
I will, I'm sure if he is having difficulty hearing you, I will pass that information along. Thank you.
All right, who am I speaking with, Mr. Franks?
Yes, this is Frank Hall.
Okay. All right.